Hello. Today we're going to paint a wildflower. I've got my Canson 140-pound watercolor paper, just inexpensive paper you can pick up at any art supply store or big box retailer. I have my paper towel. I have some watercolor paints. On the palette I have some pink, some vermilion, some yellow, some burnt umber. These are all a mixture of Winsor Newton and a few others. So this really doesn't matter what kind of paint you use. I have squeezed these ahead of time into my palette, and now I have wet them with a spray bottle to get them rehydrated. And now let's paint. Getting my brush damp first. Then I'm going to pick up some of the, see if I can get the, let's get the paint palette in. This would help. There we go. Okay. And pick up a little bit of the yellow. This is a great painting for a beginner. I'm just gonna barely touch it in here on the top half. Then I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the burnt umber and drop it in the bottom half. And I'm just gonna let them run together. Okay. Rinse my brush off a little bit. And then I'm going to dab off some of the excess water. I don't want all that water on my brush. Now I'm going to pick up just, you can see how wet my paint is, and it's pretty transparent. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of it. And I'm going to come in and paint the bottom petal. Don't have to wait for that to dry. Now I'm going to rinse my brush off. I'm going to tap some of the extra water off. And as I pull this damp brush below it, it's gonna let that pink fade down into the clear water. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the orange and just drop it in. Just a little bit there at the base of that petal. Again, I rinsed off my brush, dabbing some of the extra water off. Now I'm gonna kind of coax that. I have a little water puddle here, so I'm gonna dab that off, get my brush just a little bit drier. And I'm gonna coax all this into the pink. Now you can see that I have a pencil line. This is a kneaded eraser. I'm going to go in and just barely erase some of this. I don't mind the pencil line showing, but I wanted you to see it. It's just a little bit dark for what I want my final project to look like. Okay. And I'm hoping that you can still see that just a little bit. Now let's go on with the rest of the petals. Pink. Just gonna do it on that side. Rinse my brush off. Tap it on the side of the jar. with clear water. Let's do it again. I'm going to do every other petal so they won't run into each other. This one I'm going to do dark at the base because it's underlying these two petals. Rinse off my brush. I'm going to tap it on the side, lay my brush down just to get some of the extra water off. Controlling your paint. Now if you have big petals, you can dry your brush off just a little bit more and pick that up. Let me go ahead and tell you too, I'm using a Master's Touch round number 6. You can pick this up at any Hobby Lobby, and any good round brush with a good point on it will work really good. Okay. I'm going to drop a little, just a little bit of this vermilion down here. Rinse off my brush, tap it on the side. Then coax it down. Excuse me. Okay. This one I'm going to do the same thing. And now I'm just going to paint. I'm just going to keep repeating the process. picked up a little bit of the orange with the pink, and I'm going to drop it in on a few places at the end of the petal. Okay. Now I'm going to deepen some of these colors. By using the tip of your brush, you can get some really nice lines, but you have to hold your brush almost completely straight up and down. I'm going to tap off some of that and get some of that extra water. Not a botanical drawing, it's just a painterly wildflower. Now with the very tip of the brush, I'm going to put some of the ridges in the flower. Okay, now I'm going to put a stem in. I'm going to get some of the green. Off camera, I'm going to add a little bit of brown to it, just so it's not quite so harsh. I'm going to add a stem. I'm going to get my brush pretty wet. And pick up some of this green. And really push that brush down. I'm going to pick up some of the yellow. Kind of wiggle what I did and bring it down. In some places I'm going to add some brown. Rinse off my brush a little. Tap it off. And then make a little stem. Move this up just a little so you can see. There, that should be better. Okay, Okay, you can see I don't have much water in my paint. So with a spray bottle that you just pick up, got a little paint on it. Adding a little more water. I don't want it too thick. The more water, the lighter your paint will be. Now I'm going to offload some of that and try to get that little hair from my brush off there. And that's my dog. We call it a canine doorbell. If that puddle might run back in some things, dry off your brush a little and just touch it and you've picked it up. Okay, I'm going to add some shadows down here. This gets some painterly effects on it. Always follow the shape of the petal. The deeper the colors, the more recessed this petal's gonna look. Rinse off my brush, tap it off, don't dry it completely. Then I can take that paint a little farther. Okay, now I think I'm going to add, this is a reddish brown. I believe this one's burnt sienna. And I'm going to add a few little squiggly marks on the edge of the center of this flower. Rinse off my brush, tap it on my paper towel where it's just damp, and then I'm going to run that along the center. And then it'll make it bleed just a little bit. You can also dry off the brush, run it along there, and pick up some of that water so you get your highlight back from your yellow. You can add some more yellow in. One more thing I'm going to do, most all of this is dry now. I'm going to take some really watered down vermilion, which is an orangey pink, and just to add some interest of color, I'm going to take and glaze over just a little bit. My watercolors are transparent, so it will still show some of the first layers that we did. Okay. That's a pink wildflower. Thank you for joining me.